Well, joining me now is Democratic Senator Sheldon Whitehouse. Senator, thanks so much for taking the time to join us.
Good to be with you. Thanks for having me on.
So first, I want to talk about Venezuela if I can. There have been many questions, some of which you've raised yourself, about the deadly boat strikes off the coast of Venezuela. This seizure of an oil tanker, in your view, is this a legal action by the United States?
I haven't seen any explanation of what the basis for it is, so it's hard for me to reach a legal conclusion. The thing to me that is most notable is that this is being done to a Venezuelan oil tanker, when if you really wanted to bring peace to Ukraine, one of the ways you'd put real pressure on Putin to come to the table and stop his war criminal behavior would be to seize his shadow fleet of oil tankers. So my first reaction to this is, why are we seeing this happen off Venezuela? Why is this not happening to Putin's oil tanker shadow fleet? That would be something that would be, I think, very, very commendable.
So let's get to that question of why that difference in the application of pressure and military force. Just a few days ago, following the release of the Trump administration's national security strategy, which many in Europe that I've spoken to have said quite publicly, leans towards Russia and away from Europe. You tweeted at the time, "Do you still think Trump-Russia is a hoax?" Tell me what you meant by that.
Well, I think if you understand the Trump language decoder ring, hoax is a term that he usually uses for something that is indisputably true, right? He calls climate change a hoax. It's indisputably true. Trump-Russia is very well documented, going back to the Mueller report, going back to the intelligence assessment, going back to the bipartisan Marco Rubio-led Senate Intelligence Committee review, and the efforts to disqualify that, say with the Durham report, found nothing. And over again, there were Trump-Russia connections through the campaign, and there's evidence now that Russia's meddling in our country right now to help Trump. And when you look at our foreign policy efforts, over and over again, the common true north in almost every policy choice that gets made is it's better for Putin. And when you look at the Ukraine conflict and you're looking at a guy who literally bombs maternity hospitals, there has to be some other force, some dark star force that is causing him to make such an amoral decision. And it's not even the fastest pathway to peace. The pathway to peace is to discourage the aggressor, not to try to make the victim give up more. So nothing about this adds up without the explanation of something that is creating the kind of pressure within Trump's mind that makes him veer always towards Putin.
So if that is true, what is the response of this country? Let's set aside Europe for a moment, because as you know, the vast majority of your Republican colleagues agree that Russia and Putin are severe threats, not just to Europe's national security, but America's national security. Do you believe that Congress, under Republican leadership, is willing to check President Trump on this?
We'll see. There's a package of legislation right now that includes the sanctions, that includes the seizure of Russian assets, and that includes the declaration of basically a terror state. And that could be brought up by Leader Thune. It would have, I think, a lot of support from Republicans. I know a number of Republican senators who are pushing for it. And if you look at our Republican caucus, you've got the chairman of Judiciary, Grassley. You've got the chairman of Armed Services, Wicker. You've got the chairman of Foreign Relations, Risch. You've got the chairman of Foreign Ops, Graham. I mean, that's a very powerful group, and not only they, but also their Democrat ranking members are all staunch supporters of protecting Ukraine and trying to make sure that this does not turn into a victory for Putin that then puts China in a position to start looking aggressively at Taiwan. So there, I think, is a very strong firewall in the Senate, and I hope that that vote will come up fairly soon so that can really be made clear.
The trouble is that this is quite a sensitive and important time because it's CNN's reporting that negotiations on a peace proposal for Ukraine are moving forward, not to an agreement yet, but you have President Trump enormously influential in this process, right? Because the concern I hear from Europe is he might pull the rug out entirely from Ukraine, withdraw all remaining U.S. support to pressure Zelensky to get over the finish line here. Do you believe that a combination of Ukrainian pushback, European pushback, and if it comes, Republican pushback on the Hill can keep that from happening? Or might you see President Trump successfully push Ukraine into a deal it doesn't want?
The thing that I have heard from Republican senators who've met with President Trump recently on this subject is that he is now extremely frustrated and impatient. And I think a combination of Zelensky's firmness, which is justified, and the EU stepping up in a stronger way, and Republican resolve in the Senate, you know, which way he goes with his impatience, he can flip very quickly. Right now, the pressure is on Zelensky. But if he pivots to put pressure on Putin, I think he'll be in a position to get a peace deal better and sooner. And it's in his interest to try to achieve that rather than keep banging on the ineffectual door of trying to make Ukraine give up territory and create a potential cascade of foreign policy catastrophes around the world that results.
Yeah, certainly, as you know, fear in Eastern Europe that they would be next, right? If Russia calculates it won in Ukraine. Senator Sheldon Whitehouse, good to have you on.
Thank you.